Guys, if we could, let's go ahead and get everybody seated and get our doors closed. With this, we're going to gavel in our first natural resource meeting. We appreciate everyone accommodating the sort of last-minute schedule to give consideration to this piece of legislation. We're going to start off this morning. I'm going to ask Senator Whitney Westerfield if he'll lead us in prayer, and then we'll go straight into the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Bow with me, please. Father, we give you praise and thanks for this day. I thank you for the work that we do to serve people of Kentucky as we're asked, obligated and blessed to be able to get to do. I pray that you give us wisdom in this committee meeting and in every committee meeting, in this room and in every other room, on every other day between now and sine die, Father, that you would guide our decisions, give us strength, boldness, and courage to serve you first and the people that we serve second. In all things, Lord, we give you praise and glory, and we thank you.
Amen. If you follow me in prayer, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, at this time, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Senator Chambers Armstrong. Here. Senator Carpenter. Here. Senator Mills. Senator Schickel. Present. Senator Southworth. Here. Senator Webb. Senator Westerfield. Here. Senator Wheeler. Senator Williams.
Here.
Senator Turner. And Chair Smith.
Present. We have quorum. Very good. Since we have no minutes to approve, we won't need a vote there. But we do have a couple of announcements. I have our Commissioner Storm, who's here with us, but he has, I think, some special guests in the building. I'd like to yield for you to introduce them for us, if you would.
All right, folks. I brought my daughters, Phoebe and Avery, with me today. If they would.
I'd like to have them stand.
Stand up. Proud dad, 12 and 11-year-old girls that just recently won a national clogging championship in Tennessee, the elementary division.
Wow.
And just lights of my life and good company to have today.
Girls, welcome to our committee. Now, do we have any other members that wish to be recognized at this time? Have any other? Seeing none, then we're going to go ahead and yield to begin to get our bill started here. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and address, looks like Senate Bill 5. So we will yield over to you, Senator Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to move the committee substitute so we can discuss it.
Move, we have a second. All those in favor of the sign of aye. Opposed, likewise.
Aye.
Motion carries. Carry on.
And then to move the title amendment at the.
I don't think we need.
We need to.
Yeah, you'll do that after.
Okay, good. This is really just a technical correction to some legislation from last time. I think there's some items, it's just 6 words, very clear. There's some discussion we might have on later on some of these areas, but as this puts it back the way it was before, just 6 words. So I'd like to move the bill on that unless there's any questions anybody has.
Motion.
Comment.
We have a motion on the bill. We have a comment request by Senator Webb, so I'll yield to Senator Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Senator Williams. As the sponsor of the bill that we're changing from last session, I sometimes it helps being a lawyer and a sportsman when you're dealing with these topics. So, I grew up knowing the law, and this just goes back to the way the law was. And the accommodation that I made was at the request of KDF law enforcement on a definitional standard for what constitutes farmland. And it was kind of my idea to take it 10 acres is a statutory definition, both locally and nationally, and in Kentucky, a statutory definition of farmland. And it also has a requirement of agriculture operations, which are in fact fairly broad. So when we took it down to 5 acres to give enforcement direction, prosecutorial direction, defense direction, whatever, clarification, we were accommodating those people that owned acreage between 5 and 10 acres. That I think, Kentucky's pretty diverse. You can have farmland habitat and get that reward on acreage between 5 and 10 acres. So that's why we made the modification in the first place. I'm going to be for this bill because if we go back to the original law, it's been that way for many, many years, and we all grew up operating under, those of us who actually participate in the sport and buy licenses and have farmland. More people are going to have to buy a license when we revert to the original law. That assists our Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife in operating, because we've got a unique scenario of funding, and it's sportsmen and women, license sales, utilization taxes and fees, and federal funding through Pittman-Robertson Act. We don't get general fund. I say we as an agency because my dad was part of that through 9 governors most of my life. But there's a unique non-general fund operational agency here that's supported by specific funding mechanisms. Anything I can do to enhance that operation, because the acquisition of land and the maintenance of land and inflation and maintaining conservation camps and qualified biologists and dealing with CDW or whatever Blue Tongue or whatever we're dealing with, they need all the money they can get. The autonomy of our funding mechanism is important because true stakeholders have fund and direct those operations. Now, not to say, there's not value in bird watching and kayaking and all those, and looking out your back door and seeing a deer that we didn't see growing up in East and West Kentucky even. So I'm all for expanding this base. I'm all for stakeholders having skin in the game and giving our agency money to operate. So when we revert it back, the definition, and I would tell your officers, I would tell the prosecutors, I would tell the landowners, there's a statutory definition of farmland. It may not be in this, but there is local and federal and Kentucky state definition of farmlands and what qualifies for this exemption, and that's what it is. It is an exemption. It is a limited exemption. So we're going to take it back to 10 acres. I'm going to be for that, because more people are going to have to buy a license. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. We also need a second on the motion. Do we have a second? Have a second. All right, then we'll call the roll this time. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Senator Chambers Armstrong? Yes. Senator Carpenter? Senator Mills?
Aye.
Senator Schickel?
I'd like to vote aye. I'd like to explain my vote.
Please explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence. One thing about this has been a huge, huge issue up in my district, and I thank Senator Williams for, and you, Mr. Chairman, for addressing it in the first week of the session. And I have huge respect for the senator from Carter, but like so many things, it's the perception is the reality of it. And those of us who are not lawyers, and I've talked to both sides, and I think the senator from Carter is probably right as far as if you really slice it and dice it legally. But the fact of the matter is we're operating and we weren't using that definition for years and years and years and years, at least in enforcement we weren't. And so we created a lot of confusion amongst the common masses of what was going on. And I think that Senator Williams' change here, small change, addresses that, and I thank him for that.
Senator Southworth?
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please do.
I'm going to cast an aye vote. I really think, obviously, I am for this language because I voted against the bill last year to change it, so I have no problem reverting back. But I think the bigger issue that we're going to have to address is I don't really care how big your property is. If you want to have a pond, if you can have a pond and stock your fish, then, that's your pond and your fish. I just don't think that needs to even be under anything relating to farmlands, licenses, and so forth. So we do need to get that straightened out. And I know everybody's talking about this now, that everyone started realizing what it was. And after we voted, then we started reading the bills. So I hope we're reading the bills now ahead of time, and we'll get this straightened out later this session. Thank you.
Senator Turner? Senator Webb?
I'm going to explain my yes vote and respond to some of the things that have been said. And, great respect for my colleagues, but there was a campaign of misinformation on this bill. There's no question about that. A campaign of misinformation on the bill. It was factually incorrect in the interpretation of the media, and certain ideological groups and maybe others certainly was not correct in any way, form, or fashion. So that perception is perception, but the law is a law, and the law was, and it will be once again what it is. And if you're a sportsman, and if you're a hunter, and if you're a landowner or a farmer, you know the law. You take it upon yourself to know the law because there's potential punishment in violation of same. And ignorance is no excuse. So I grew up knowing this law, knowing the definitions, not before I was a lawyer, when I was a kid. So I vote yes.
Senator Westerfield. Senator Wheeler. Senator Williams.
I'd like to explain my vote.
Please do.
I very much appreciate the comments from the senator from Carter and the senator from Boone 11. I think there is a dichotomy between perhaps the strict legal understanding and the popular understanding of how this works. And I am confident that later in this session, we will bring those two definitions closer together. So I vote yes, and let's move on to the next step of aligning them closely so everybody understands how it works.
And Chair Smith.
I vote aye. Do we need to take care of the title amendment right now? So we need a motion on the title amendment.
Move the title amendment.
I second. All those in favor of the sign of aye. Opposed likewise. Carries. Senate Bill 5 as amended is approved by this committee with the expression that the same shall pass. Congratulations. We get this moved on out of here.
Thank you. Can we
Just some
can we-
quick housekeeping.
consent calendar?
As this committee goes forward, hopefully we'll be able to give everyone more time and less short notice. I'd originally thought this meeting had been canceled, so I apologize for the dueling emails, but there'll be a decorum to this committee as we go forward, and I want everybody to really sit down and look at the rules of committee so we understand. And as we exchange back and forth through the chair to make it easier for all of us, if you have a follow-up question, just come back to the chair, because I may have 5 or 6 other people up here that are waiting. So just as a courtesy, it's not that we want to cut you off, just as a follow-up. Often we get carried away, but just take a minute and think about the other members, and then always come back to the chair. With that said, we're going to go ahead and gavel out if nobody has any other questions or comments. Seeing none, we stand. I have a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor may leave.